Just when you thought we had enough of Dario Argento, he somehow makes a surprise return in this week's Fairy Tale Horrors because of one of the greatest fairy tale horrors of all time that he created, and that is Phenomena, which is a 1985 Italian giallo horror movie that is produced and directed by the iconic great himself, Dario Argento. Now, to start off, whereas some of these other movies in this list are horror in the sense where they're not so much brutal horror or horror as that concept, but it's more surrealistic or more inwardly, something you see as a kid that stays with you forever, or implications that are much darker now as an adult than they were back then. Phenomenon is different. Phenomenon is a rated R horror film that has fairy tale like tendencies. So think of it as a Suspiria, but more of a fairy tale and with bugs, and maybe a little bit of Motorhead sprinkled in. So the plot kind of deals with a very young Jennifer Connelly who can talk to insects. Basically, she's in a remote Swiss boarding school and she discovers that she has psychic powers and she can work with all these bugs. And in that time, if that isn't crazy enough, she uses those powers to pursue a killer, an unknown Giallo killer who is targeting young girls around the school. So we have your subplot of a killer going around killing young women. We have this idea of this young girl who is in this remote place, just like in Suspiria, stuck in a situation that she has no control over. Somehow she's a chosen one that has the power to talk to bugs. And then, of course, you have Donald Pleasance, who's always great to see on screen, by the way. And he's in here, which is a good part. But on top of that, he has a chimpanzee named Inga, who is ultimately the true hero and avenger of the film. When I say a monkey nurse seeking vengeance with a straight razor, that is somehow still not the craziest thing that happens in this movie. There's a lot of things going on, and that's what makes it feel so surrealistic, both from the way things are shot to the glamour in which Argento is able to put his thoughts on screen. Again, the original score, he's working with Goblin again, but on top of that, he's bringing in some different pieces as well, like Motorhead, like Iron Maiden. So it has more of a rock and heavy metal feel to it, which I thought was very interesting. It has this charm. It is able to bring us into this world of this young girl who really is, again, a damsel in distress, but not really. She's able to use her newfound powers to help her make the world a better place ultimately. The last 15 minutes are fucking insane and worth the movie alone. But what I can say is definitely, Phenomenon is definitely a movie that you want to check out because, again, it's Dario Argento firing off at all cylinders. It's a director who has these wild thoughts and somehow manages to produce wild movies that are still surprisingly really good. And I think this movie is worth your time. I love this film.